to do some groundwork before the summit proper, because it's actually almost the last item on the agenda of the summit, which is yearly. They have ECOWAS has two summits every year. One in the middle of the year, around June, July, and then the other one at the end of the year. Those are the ordinary ones. In between, there could be what you call extraordinary or emergency summits, depending on what happens. So, it is based on this formula of rotating it around the three language zone, and usually for 1 year. And if what has emerged over the years is that there is now the tendency to be giving somebody who has done 1 year, 2 years, perhaps if they were doing some work to be able to complete, as they say. So that is how it has been. This is what is happening. They were doing it originally. They talked about just rotating it based on from one language zone. Now they are talking about alphabetical. That is according to the name, of the 15. You begin with Benin and through until you get to Togo. But I think they are mixing the two up now to make sure that at least every country gets to cheer. But I would like to tell you that it is only now that some of these countries, all of them, are in a position to cheer, because it has always been Nigeria. Remember that locating the headquarters in Nigeria is not by default. It's the fact that Nigeria was the engine, was the pillar behind it. If you remember the Professor Adedejis and then Edem Kojo of Togo, that Yadema and the General Gawan, that were behind the setting up of this. And Nigeria has been very active, midwifing the organization, is the largest, the most popular, has more than 200 out of the 400 plus million people, and then contributes the greatest to the budget of Ecowas. So, and Nigeria cannot, according to what they call the hosting the agreement, host country agreement, Nigeria cannot become the president of the commission or the deputy or vice president. So, but can also assume other positions. So, but in the past, when these countries were either in conflict or could not afford to host, Nigeria had hosted more summits than any of the other countries. And so that is what it is.
All right. Thank you very much for that opening remark of yours. Now, President Tinubu has clutched the mantle of ECOWAS leadership. He has so many issues, particularly the issue of the withdrawal of the junta countries from ECOWAS. But then let me ask you this. In your own assessment, what is your assessment of President Tinubu's 1 year in office? What is your assessment in terms of how he has been able to handle the breakaway of several, about four countries in Africa? Then also, it is instructive that ECOWAS was formed in 1975, mainly for economic cooperation. So what has been achieved since then?
Very loaded question. If let me begin with the last, what has been achieved. ECOWAS will not be shy in pointing to what is achievements. It can be proud of a number of things. One is the free movement of persons, services, and goods, rights of citizens to establish. One country citizen of another country can move to the other one and stay for 90 days without visa, visa-free. ECOWAS was the first to begin with that. There is the trade liberalization scheme that is supposed to help make sure that there is free, commerce. Remember that interstate trade is very, for official one, is lingering between 11% and 15%. But if you go to unofficial, you find itinerant traders crossing borders from one place to the other because the borders are really porous. You have families that have members in one side and then either side of the boundaries. There is also the fact that in conflict resolution or management and ECOWAS has been doing well. In fact, is the trailblazer on that. Remember the wars in Liberia, Sierra Leone, in Guinea, Cote d'Ivoire, and even in some of these countries that are also having problems, ECOWAS had always provided not just the bulk of the personnel in the military to do it, but also providing resources. So both, in personnel and then financial. So, what has come to member countries have benefited. They have, you've had collaboration with development partners, the EU, and even with single countries. They have all, because the tendency is for regional economic cooperation. That is why you have Africa is supposed to have 8 of them. There is the GAD, there is East Africa, there is Southern Africa, SADC, there is the Central Africa, there is COMESA, Central and Marketing Group. There is also Maghreb Group. There is the and ECOWAS. Well, of all these 8, ECOWAS had been the one that was leading in terms of what it can show, or in terms of concrete achievements. The citizens have also benefited from programs and activities of ECOWAS. That's so much so that if any member that wanted a position in international organization, once instead of all of them fighting, the 15, they agree among themselves that they will support one candidate and then move that to AU. By that, the candidate normally succeeds. And instead of, I will tell you that they have benefited from being together, from forming ECOWAS, than if all these countries had remained as individuals, no matter how big, whether it is Nigeria or these other, smaller ones that are either weak, poor, and then will not even, their budgets are underwritten by the support, donor funding. So these are some of the, and many more. You will also know that ECOWAS could have done more. And the fact that it hasn't done as much as it could, that is why poor leadership, actually at national and regional level, has now created this issue of ECOWAS countries going back to where they used to be. Remember, if those who follow ECOWAS from the formation in 1975, we know that those days you used to have 2 governments, one in the bush, the other one by rebels, and another one in the center, like Liberia, Sierra Leone, and others for so many years. But ECOWAS, with the formation of ECOMOG, like what you call the ECOWAS Peace Monitoring Group, that ended the war in Liberia and Sierra Leone. So such instruments are there. And from there, ECOWAS has also developed some other instruments, protocols that they use in settling conflicts or disputes. What has happened is that over the last decade or so, they have dropped the ball. They are no longer in following these instruments. They are violated. For instance, defined countries or leaders changing constitution or rigging election or violating the rights of their citizens, and ECOWAS is no longer doing anything. Meanwhile, ECOWAS in the past was very strong, principled, and took tough decisions, like sanctioning, suspending its members that cross the line. For instance, in Niger in 2009, the president there, Tanja, wanted to dissolve parliament and do tenure elongation. But ECOWAS stood up, and then he rolled back, and the military took over. ECOWAS suspended the military and asked them to go back, to come back to civilian regime. They did that. In 2010, Yahya Jammeh 2011, wanted to hold an election. ECOWAS had sent what they call fact-finding mission. And when they came back, the result was that the environment was not suitable for that kind of election. There was no level playing field. So ECOWAS Commission refused to send observers and refused to recognize that the result of that election. That made them, but because some other international partners like AU and others did not support ECOWAS, that allowed Yahya Jammeh to remain until 2016, when he now held another election and refused to recognize the results. But what happened, it was also with the help of ECOWAS that he was removed. He's now in exile in Equatorial Guinea. So these are some of the, when Cote d'Ivoire's crisis came, when Mali's problem came, Mali's problem is not today. ECOWAS they had formed what they call AFISMA, the Africa-led peace mission, which was populated by ECOWAS member states. But France intervened and then escalated it. They now called it MINUSMA. The UN took it over. But after how many years? Since 2013, they didn't achieve much, about 13 or 14,000 personnel. But they were not able to achieve much. And that is why now I think Mali has asked them to go. But I can tell you that with ECOWAS, if the conflicts that happened in the ECOWAS region were left with the UN or other organizations, and now with the way ECOWAS handled it, some of those conflicts will still have been on till today. UN is not very good in conflict or in all these missions. There is one that they started in Cyprus since 1965. It hasn't ended. They are still there, and so on and so forth. But ECOWAS, when they started, there were results. So it is not for want of results, but because the ECOWAS, as is now seen, those things for which ECOWAS were very popular or acclaimed, they have now, the new crop of leaders are now changing constitutions. It happened in Cote d'Ivoire. ECOWAS did not say anything. Tenure elongation. It happened in Guinea. ECOWAS is not saying much, and so on and so forth. And the elections are now, for instance, now in Togo, the government there changed the constitution without popular participation. ECOWAS has not seen much. In Sierra Leone, in Senegal, but for the fact that the population rose, and then with civil society, the former President Macky Sall would have gone ahead to also along what they call third-term syndrome. So these are the things. So it's not, and it is because people, when they say that the reward for hard work is more work, to whom much is given, much is required. ECOWAS, people are now judging ECOWAS from its past performance that is no longer living up to the standards that is set before. That is the crisis of what is it called that is suffering now. Now back to the tenure of President Tinubu of Nigeria. Well, for some reason, he is not the first person that will assume the chairmanship of ECOWAS immediately after after an election. It happened in Ghana. It happened in Guinea-Bissau. It happened in Cote d'Ivoire with Alassane Ouattara. I don't know what the plan is, whether it is to maybe, because usually some of these elections are contentious. maybe it is to boost or give some legitimacy to some of these the occupiers. But that is it has always not been too helpful, because the occupants are now laden with too many responsibilities. One is trying to get the national issues right, and then you now add that of a region to it. And that is the challenge that Tinubu has had, of now trying to, you see what is happening in Nigeria. But it's not only in Nigeria that are economic crises across the world, but it is just the having dynamic and visionary leadership to be able, and having the crop of, technocrats that will see beyond what the ordinary people are seeing, that will now take measures to alleviate some of the crisis, the hardship. What has happened is that he came in, mentioned that fuel subsidy has gone. Fuel subsidy is a very hot potato. And all the governments, Jonathan, Buhari, they were all shying away from it. But he came in thinking that maybe it was the way things were working in Lagos, where he had 8 years on, unbroken. But he has since found that Lagos is different from Nigeria. Here, you need critical thinking. You need to come with strategies and consult, widely before decisions are taken. You notice that he just came in and announced that subsidy was gone. Then now had to walk back. And then whether or not subsidy is there, it becomes, so everything now looks shadowy. And look at the prices, look at inflation, look at the price of fuel. And even now, as we speak, there is fuel crisis. The refineries are not working, yet money is being pumped there. There is so much corruption, even among the new cabinet members. And so Nigerians are asking, but he had said that it was his turn. So Nigeria, his expectation, he said this is what he was going to do, as if there will be a change from what Nigerians experienced in the last 8 years of Buhari. But things appear to be getting worse rather than look at the exchange rate and all that. Then back to the region, when your home is on fire, you cannot really be going outside. So people are saying that the fact that Ecowas is not functioning is a product of the fact that Nigeria has not gotten its act together. Nigeria has not provided leadership. And that has to do with challenges that the leadership or the government at home is facing. Because they need to, now, to be able to kick, you need to stand on your 2 feet. Otherwise, you can fall.
Yeah. We are coming to the areas that the countries making up ECOWAS must look into in order to forestall, to make ECOWAS better, as well as members of ECOWAS. Now, you talked about ECOWAS having legitimacy in the past, but today it doesn't have that legitimacy. That's why it has become so notorious among people of Africa. In January, the junta government pulled out. And one of the reasons why they did that was they talked about the unholy alliance between ECOWAS and the Western countries, the United States, France, and the rest of them, Britain. So I want you to, in concrete terms, tell us the relationship between the Western countries and Africa. Has it been, that relationship, is it parasitic or is it symbiotic? Is there any good benefits, positive benefits Africa has been benefiting from his association with the West? Because that is the reason why the junta government are saying, no, we are pulling off completely from ECOWAS. So tell us, what has been the nature of the relationship between Western countries and African countries, especially West Africa?
So I will have to let us what is it? Put them in context and then compartments. One is individually as countries. Remember that many of the African countries went through colonialism, okay, and then got independence. Even most of them by fighting, what you call liberation struggle or independence struggle. Nigeria is happy that is lucky that didn't have to engage in physical fight, but but that influence is still there, particularly among the what you call the francophone, that is the former French colonies, because of the fact how that government took place. In French, in the Anglophone, the British, they did what you call indirect rule. Of course, it led to divide and rule or whatever. But France had a different strategy. Originally, they had what they call the policy of assimilation. And that meant that citizens of all these countries where it was a colonial master were made to, as if they were subsumed. They could become French citizens. Some of them, some Africans even were voted for in France, under this policy. Then that was changed to have the policy of association, where you now, say, okay, if you are going to have independence, we can associate. But even so, there is the belief that they really never got independence. It was like giving somebody a goat or an animal and still holding to the leash. Because why? Because of the agreements that were signed before independence. In fact, one of the agreements is called continuation of colonization. So in fact, that these countries unfortunately cannot really call themselves independent. One, France has military bases in most of them, okay? And two, it gave France the first choice of right of over all the resources in those countries. So what does that mean? That if there is any resources there, French company will be, if there is any competition, the French companies will have the first, will have preference before any other country. Second, that France was also responsible for the currencies that these people are using, be it in West Africa or Central Africa. You call it the CFA franc. So, for instance, 8 countries seven in Ecowas are all using the let's say francs, which is controlled by the French Treasury. In fact, at one point, it was said that all of them will deposit their, they have their financial deposit in the French Treasury, and then will only collect this part of it, even at almost 80%. I think they have changed it now to 50. We can only take 50% of it, and under, as loan with interest. And then on top of that, France had built had some buildings in these former colonies, and the countries that they colonized were supposed to be paying for these buildings. Like the parliament or the residencies of the presidency. These were some of the issues that what France had. And it's not just within West Africa. If you remember Haiti, Haiti used to be a French that was colonized by France. And the problem that Haiti is having today is because it had to pay debts that it owed France. And after paying that debt, that is how the country has become, what is a shadow of itself today. Okay, so that is how dangerous and how, the colonial influence has been. Not only after that, not only France, but Britain and Portugal and others, have even America. They have the what you now call geopolitics. They is it Russia now? Russia coming in, China. They are all looking for spheres of influence. And these colonial powers had tried to control whoever governs, whoever is in government, because they know that is the only way they can control the resources. Let me tell you that the resources in Africa is mound. In fact, Africa is the fertile ground, the continent to go of choice of many of them, because all other places, I think the resources are all gone. You have gold, you have the price of minerals and resources in Africa, in gold, in diamond. Even in Niger, you have what you use for nuclear power, where France is organized using it, uranium. French company are mining it and taking the resources to develop their own nuclear power, while more than 80% of people in Niger do not have access to electricity supply. So this is part of it's not just there. In Mali, they have been fighting. They say they are fighting terrorism. Meanwhile, the area in the northern Mali is rich in minerals, gold and all that. But the government in Bamako do not have access to that area. But French military are based there, and others. Foreign troops are based in that place. And so you ask, what is so there has been this perfidy, there has been this heinous way that the colonial powers have tried to influence what is happening. But you cannot actually, after 60 years, we cannot continue to blame the colonial masters. I think it is because those governing Africa have allowed this. In my place, they say that it is the house rat that tells the bush rat where there is meat or fish. So the greatest the responsibility goes to African leaders who have allowed what is happening now to go on. Of course, there is pressure, but if you are ready, because I know you will also understand that they have had to assassinate some leaders who try to oppose Western countries. But if you are ready, if you put up yourself for governance, you understand what it takes, that you can sacrifice your own life. And that is patriotism. That is where it will come, not by joining with those who are oppressing your country for continuation of, now it becomes neo-colonialism against your own people, because they steal some of this money and then they warehouse it in foreign countries, in the West and all that. So against their own people. So African leaders and these external forces have been responsible for the fact that Africa is badly managed. Africa is not zero poor. If the resources were to be managed properly, Africa will not be, and West Africa will not be where it is today.
All right, Mr. Paul, thank you for that response. It is very unfortunate that we are still having a security and economic issue, despite our cooperation with the West. They claim that they are cooperating with us for our own good, but we have not been able to see any positive changes in Africa. Now, the junta governments have pulled out, and they are saying that the breakaway is irrevocable. They are not returning to Ecowas any longer. In fact, they have formed an alliance called the Sahel Alliance of Sahel States. Now, what are the economic implications, security implications? Because Africa is being ravaged by terrorism. So what do you think? Will there be an improvement in terms of security of the junta countries, and also the security of the other countries in the West Africa? And then the junta countries, there are speculations that they might cling to other world powers like China and Russia Now, do you think that the cooperation with Russia and China, if at all it will come, will improve security conditions in their own countries?
Okay. Another mouth, what is it called? Question, big question. But I would say they actually are emboldened by the fact that they will have allies with Russia and China, particularly Russia. That because you can see that they are signing. There is a private Russia private military group called Wagner that are already in operation in some of these states. Well, that is it's within their right to really go and associate with whatever. They are sovereign states. They are free. But the problem is that while accusing ECOWAS of being influenced by foreign powers like France, the irony is that within ECOWAS, I told you that there are about 8 countries that are French-speaking, including these 3. They belong to what you call UEMOA, West African Economic and Monetary Union. This was set up by France. In fact, many thought that it was meant to rival ECOWAS. This organization is still there. It was set up by France, and then the money that they are using is CFA francs, which is controlled by the French Treasury, like I told you. But they find it easy to pull out of ECOWAS, but they have not found it. They have not pulled out of UEMOA. They have not stopped using the French controlled currency. So if you were, all they have done is maybe to send away the military French soldiers, followed by Americans and then the European Union, maybe to welcome those from Russia. I will come to whether it is, what the sense there. But let people not be fooled. You cannot be accusing ECOWAS of being influenced by France. Meanwhile, you are belonging to an association set up by France, which is within ECOWAS. Okay, the 8 members are ECOWAS member states, and the 3 of them belong to it. But it was easy for them to say they are pulling out of ECOWAS. What happened to the one that France is? If France is the problem, why are they now neck deep in an association that was created by France? And why are they still using the currency that is controlled by France? Because if you say you are forming an association, and let's get it right, that is why people are saying it is not wrong. And let me also, we must also clear, stating that there is anti-French sentiments, which is expressed by citizens, not just, and this is what these military rulers are using. They didn't start it because after all, many of them were serving under civilians that were hobnobbing with the French people. Many of them were trained in France. Okay, so they cannot really claim that they have been innocent, they have been neutral. They have all been part of it. The training in Niger, for instance, had been head of presidential guard. So they've all been enjoying. So we'll wait to see what these populist and showboating that they are doing, whether there is substance in it, or is it just a case of replacing France with Russia. And I can tell you that if that is the case, then it is wrong-headed, because very soon the honeymoon will be over. They will get down to the reality that it is not about the foreign powers that you have. It is about how you govern. It is about good leadership. And from the way they are starting, they are coming up with, they do not want anybody to question them. That's why they want to, because it's only ECOWAS that is asking questions and telling them, listen, come back to constitutional rule. Of course, ECOWAS made a mistake in the case of Niger. by saying they wanted to go and use and that is not part of how ECOWAS has been operating. But maybe because of the influence of these people, they did it, but thank God they pulled back. Because you cannot go and use force against your own people. Nigerians, Niger people and Nigerians and other people, they are brothers and sisters. You can't now go and say you want to go and fight. How are you going to do that? So that was a terrible error on the part of ECOWAS. And the fact that it is the leaders who are afraid that the military will come and remove them. That is, it's all knee-jerk. So it is what you call the interest. Everybody, the politicians are fighting for their own interest. The military are also coming. So what I'm saying there is that there are organizations within ECOWAS. Like I've told you, there is UEMA. There is what you call the Mano River Union that groups Sierra Leone, Liberia, Guinea, and Cote d'Ivoire. They are still within ECOWAS. There is also what you call the Zone of Prosperity Union. They're also within ECOWAS. There is the Conseil de Détente, another group of countries who think that together they can further their own interests. So there is nothing wrong in these three countries saying of the Sahel, saying, okay, we are forming this alliance. But for God's sake, do that and not give the excuse that it is because ECOWAS is not doing well. That is why you are moving. Because they stand more to lose than ECOWAS other members. Why? They are all contiguous. The geography is such that you can't even tell one border from the other. Again, they are also landlocked. They are poor. They depend on foreign donation and foreign assistance for their economy. So I don't know for how long they are going to rely on the support from Russia or even China, assuming the fact what they are saying, which might have some merit, is that the West, France, EU, America, and the other people who were there did not help them to fight terrorism, that they were there for their own interests. And of course, who tells you that China and Russia for their Christmases, they will also come with their own demand, whatever they are giving you. I haven't seen anybody that will give you anything. There is no free lunch, not even in Freetown. Whatever anybody is doing, it is for, they will come back, there is something there for them. And that is what Africa should be doing. Africa should see themselves to maximize the benefit of the resources that God has given Africa, instead of allowing it or other people to come with the connivance of local people to exploit and explore those resources and then use the money to be and take the money away from the country, or for it to benefit just a few. It has to benefit the greater majority of the people who own and that you see what happened in Kenya. So it is about accountability, whether you are a military or civilian, and you have to provide good leadership. So I think all the countries, the 15, stand better. For instance, Mauritania, ECOWAS used to be 16. Mauritania pulled out because they said they wanted to protect their currency. They applied in 1999 and pulled out in 2000. But the same Mauritania is now saying they want to come back. So it is, and other countries, Morocco, and those countries that are not within West Africa, they want to come to ECOWAS. ECOWAS must be doing something right. But we also agree that over the past decade, they have failed to live up to their own standard.
All right. Thank you very much. Given the corruption in Africa currently, because I still stand on the term that the reason why they put that is very important. They pulled out because of corruption over more than 20 years now. 1975 till today, Africa is getting worse. So given the corruption, given the electoral violence, the holistic economic downturn in African countries, do you think that recent events in Francophone countries have opened series of other, or will open series of other domino effects in other countries. So what do you think? Do you think that other countries will be joining these coups soon?
Well, before you join, the advice is that it's not just being a member of an association. What is the cause of, let us look at the cause of everything, whether it is the military. The real cause is that the civilians have not delivered. They made promises that they were going to fight terrorism or insecurity. They didn't fight it. They also have ignored, they have been violating the Ecowas protocols, like changing the constitution, like rigging election. And then you mentioned corruption and all that. They don't respect the rule of law. This is a combination of what has led. So coups and all, they are symptoms, if you ask me. So instead of dealing with symptoms, you go and do it with the root causes of the problem. Because even the military rulers will also have their own problem. By the time they assume power, now they don't want to, they are leaving ECOWAS. I think some people are saying that they are leaving because they do not want ECOWAS to obey the rule within ECOWAS. Because if they are still there, ECOWAS every time will be telling them, listen, you have to organize the election and come back within a particular period. But they don't want to do that. That's why they are now, if you look at the transition that they have, some of them 3 years, 5 years. Meanwhile, an elected government is supposed to last for 4 or 5 years. The people in Mali, they took over government in 2020. This is 2024. What have they done? They are semi-goiter. What is the movement? Has the well-being of the people improved? Have they stopped the insecurity? These are questions. So what the idea now is that they want to change their uniform because they have written in their transition charter that they can, those who can contest. And this is against ECOWAS protocol. If you have organized a coup, which is an illegal action, we know what it is. You have to pay the consequence. You do not have to benefit from it. But they have gone now to write in there that they can participate in the transition program. What that means, and we have seen it before, of they going, some military people going, even in Nigeria, going for transition program endlessly. At the end of the day, they even change their uniform from military to take on Agbada. Okay? And where has that led? The same corruption is there. Remember that you have seen coup within coups. You have seen the military toppling the military. So it shows that military, they are not wired to govern. So this idea that it is their excuse, which I should say is concrete, was that the sanctions were biting hard, but ECOWAS has removed the sanctions. Well, also the fact that ECOWAS wanted to use military force, but it's not against the three of them. It was just against Niger. So they are trying to make it look as if ECOWAS is the cause of the problem of all the countries as individual countries. These countries have their problem. It's not ECOWAS that entered into the agreement that their leaders entered with France or any other person. ECOWAS does not have an army. ECOWAS is not a policeman. But they are there to point out the fact that if you belong to a group, if you subscribe to a group, just like you belong to the UN, you have to pay your due. You have to live up to the protocol and instruments that you signed up to. What people are saying is that ECOWAS should do more to make its members obey, comply with its, for instance, the protocol on supplementary protocol on democracy and good governance of 2001 is against has zero tolerance for unconstitutional change of government. And unconstitutional change of government is not only by the military. Politicians, civilians are taking by organizing changing constitution of your country. That is a constitutional coup. By rigging election, that is electoral coup. So it is not just military coup that we should focus on. These civilians, it is because they are organizing these other coups, and nobody, when civilians come to the streets, they clobber them. That is why they have only seen that it's only the military that can now remove them. And that's why they wanted to, this heavy hand against the military in Niger, which backfired. But they have already pulled back on that. So Ecowas should look at itself critically and then obey, make its leaders. It's particularly the attitude of the leaders. They are the ones destroying ECOWAS. If ECOWAS stays today, it is because the leaders allow it. If it's gone, it's because the leaders have destroyed it. And it will be a shame that what has worked for them over the years, that they are going to allow it. That is where the responsibility of President Tinubu comes in. I think for whatever reason, the fact that he has been given another year, remember that the coups didn't start during his tenure. Okay, the coups started in 2020. He only came to power last year. So, but if he has agreed to take on this responsibility, it is also his, he has a duty and to make sure that ECOWAS does not dismember during his chairmanship.
Thank you very much. Let's turn our focus on the content of the Tinubu's acceptance speech. Tinubu has appointed the president of Senegal to lead a mediation session that will lead to the reunion between ECOWAS and those who have pulled out. Now, do you think there are prospects for any kind of success based on this?
A lot will depend on both sides, if they can negotiate in good faith, okay, sincerity. Because even as we speak, you notice that there are three leaders that did not attend that summit, even though they sent representatives. I don't know whether it's by coincidence or whatever. President Ouattara of Cote d'Ivoire was not there. President Faure Gnassingbé of Togo was not there. And President Talon of Benin was not there. Okay? And okay, of course, Guinea, Cape Verde. But these three countries that I have mentioned, they have issues with this elongation problem. Ouattara started it changing the constitution in 2016, and that gave him third term. And there is the indication that he's going for a fourth term. In Togo, Faure, who came into power after the death of his father in 2005, he was literally opposed, the military imposed him on the country. And then there were elections that were organized, which transparency, many people cannot guarantee. He has been in power. Then now they have changed the constitution to make Togo now moving from presidential to parliamentary. And now they have president of the republic and president of the council of ministers. And he is to the criticism is that he has done that to be able to assume to get more to elongate his tenure. Then in Benin, Talon is also reported to be having nursing that the same idea of a third term. Three of them were absent. I don't know whether it was deliberate or for whatever. So these are some of the things that ECOWAS should go to look into. Even in the Gambia, where ECOWAS had used its might to remove a dictator after 22 years, Yahya Jammeh, in 2017. The man who took over, who, by the way, Adama Barrow, who was sworn in another country, in Senegal, instead of the Gambia because of insecurity. The way he has, his government has also carried on, the constitution that they were, the draft constitution that they spent so much money to put together, they have not launched it. They are still using the old constitution used by Jammeh. In fact, his party is now fraternizing with the Jammeh party. So what has changed? And then the Sierra Leone and Nigeria had very contentious elections recently that ended up in courts. You know the story for Nigeria. And there is division in Nigeria. Nigeria needs to heal. And that is part of Tinubu's responsibility. He has to bring Nigerians together. He has to make sure that the hardship ends. In Sierra Leone, there is a crisis. And, there were reported attempted coups. And then Guinea-Bissau, the man there, Mbalo, had dissolved parliament. And then ECOWAS appears to be appealing to these people instead of coming out strong to them to say, listen, you have violated the protocol, regional protocol. And then that is what they expect, the citizens expect ECOWAS to do. But instead, this will shock you, they are now forming what they call a standby force. I don't know whether you are going there or maybe
I'm not asking you that question.
Okay, yes. Okay, put the question, or do I go ahead?
Okay, let me put it right.
Yes.
In the speech given by Tinubu, he also urged member states to commit themselves financially so that they could develop a standby force that will combat terrorism in the region. Now, I want to ask you this question because not just in Nigeria, in other African countries, there has been this nature of offensive operations, all the time offensive operations. During the administration of Buhari, he purchased a lot of offensive weapons like Tucano jets and all of that. So what about other ways in which we could deal with the issue of insecurity in Nigeria, in West Africa, in Africa as a whole? What are the other ways? What do you think? Because is it only by creating a standby force that will venture into attacking? What are the other ways, other methods by which Africa, ECOWAS countries can explore, can look at, and deal with this issue of insecurity? So what are your thoughts on the establishment of this standby force for regional security?
Yeah, I noticed that before I get there, I noticed that you asked me, that President Tinubu as chairman, he set up a committee, to be led by the president of Senegal to bring in to get back this. It's possible, but I say unless both sides will negotiate with in good faith, they have ECOWAS taking care of those, addressing those. What is it called? Disaffections or those things that are making people to be angry with it, and then welcoming their brothers back. And then the three countries also realizing that together, the 15 countries can achieve more than going in different directions or dismembering ECOWAS. Now, to the standby force. Do you know ECOWAS has a standby force that is dysfunctional? It's not functioning. Why? Because there is no resources. And then who are the countries to contribute the troops? Because when you do that, already all the countries are stretched to their limit in terms of contribution. But, well, now the new the standby force they're talking about will have about 5,000 troops. I wonder where they are coming from. But the key thing is, where will the money come from? Because the 15 member countries, most of them are not up to date in their annual subscription or into the what they call community levy, what ECOWAS uses to finance itself. The budget of ECOWAS is about $300 to $400 million. And then you are now talking about 2.6 to go and fight. Like you said, it will only enrich, because West Africa or Africa, none of them they don't produce countries, they don't produce weapons. What it means is that all the hardware and maybe whatever assets will going to buy things from abroad, taking the money that you don't have to go abroad and buy. But don't get me wrong. Whatever it is that you can use, whether kinetic or non-kinetic, to fight terrorism and end it is welcome. But the point is that you have to be strategic. You have to be smart. You have to use it to be bring cost effectiveness into it. There is no point trying now to become. By the way, is it not ironic that you are also using military to sustain democracy? You're supposed to be professing democracy, and now you are devoting more to go buying. I hope it's not being. This is not an agenda being pushed by those who are selling arms, the defense industries, because they want to collect money from West Africa. I think that kind of money can be better utilized in activities, in programs that will benefit the long-suffering community members, community citizens in Ecowas. They are suffering. They from Togo to Nigeria, from Cape Verde to Benin. The citizens are crying. Poverty is alarming, and they are yearning for good governance rather than having military policing them, because the danger of having such is that whenever they want to, those who are using, even without using the military to elongate their power, they will now use it. Whatever happens, they will say, they will deploy them there. And it is to protect the government that may be illegitimate, to protect the government that will be, like you said, oppressing the people, and then tampering on their human rights, and then there will be no rule of law. So I am against that for this use, but I support using whatever, but not 2 point, because ECOWAS countries cannot raise it. If it is coming from development partners, we now also have to check it, because you cannot collect money from development partners and then come again to complain that they are meddling in your affairs, because they will now dictate to you what who plays the piper. They say dictates the tone. They will tell you how to use the weapons. They will say you are not obeying human rights. There, all kinds of things. So Africa is better off being independent, and it can happen. They can use, if the resources in Africa can be harnessed optimally to benefit the citizens, no African citizen will go home hungry, and there will be no poverty.
Oh, thank you very much, Mr. Ijime. Now, let's talk a bit about the relationship between ECOWAS and Nigeria. Nigeria has been was a major progenitor of this organization in 1975 when it was created, and Nigeria has committed a lot to see this organization move forward in terms of the military resources. It has committed to deal with unrest in African countries like Sierra Leone, Liberia, and all that. In 2019, Buhari's government pledged to build a railway connecting Niger and Nigeria, and that was worth $1.9 billion. So Nigeria has been criticized for playing big brother to other African countries unconscionably. So what do you think? Do you think Nigeria is doing beyond its bounds?
So there is a historical context to that. Remember that Nigeria is a big country, or the big brother that you call, played its part in the emancipation and the independence struggle of most of African countries, particularly in Southern Africa. South Africa under apartheid, Angola, Namibia, Zimbabwe. Most of them could not have been independent because Nigeria then uses what you call the petrodollar, uses petroleum resources, the money, to, even if under military regime, to get this to happen. But times have changed. There has been a shift in a lot of things in geopolitics, strategy, in the fact that with the threats that have also come in, like terrorism, separatist movement and armed movement, and the fact that countries like Libya, Gaddafi is no longer there. Gaddafi played a big role in trying to, because what some of the part of the problem that West Africa and Sahel are facing now is the fact that those who could not come in when Gaddafi was there, this armed group that you cannot control or that have made that space ungovernable, Gaddafi was able to control them. Forget, he also had his own faults. He had his own, nobody is perfect. Well, he provided a buffer. He made sure that, because even with many called him a dictator, whatever, but in Libya, if people must be honest, was better under Gaddafi than what you have today. Just like Iraq, or where is it, Afghanistan, or other places where the West have told you that they have gone to fight a dictator, to fight to export their democracy. It hasn't worked. They have ended up leaving the countries like a failed state. In the case of Libya, it is that 2011 assassination of Gaddafi that has allowed that state face. These people now, these groups, be it Al Qaeda, ISIS, and all of them, and then Boko Haram in Nigeria, and every one of them, they now find a space that is not governed, and that is why they are having free reign. They are operating there. So the point now is, how can this be addressed? It can be addressed not, like I said, by a combination of forces, not just what do you call it, using so many factors, not just one. There is no one single one. No what is it? Bullet. No silver bullet. You have to combine what you have. It becomes so both kinetic, diplomatic, and then make sure that you also take care of the socio-economic needs, which are the absence of which have given rise to this discontentment, and then the fact, and then inequality, and the fact of people seeing opulence existing side by side with poverty. That cannot. Look at the Kenyans. Look at what the youths are saying. So if care is not taken, whether it is under military or under civilians, the people are now holding the civilians, the citizens must play their part. Let them be they can't just be cheerleaders. Whatever any government in power they support, or they think it is when it is our turn, they have a responsibility too. The civil society, the media, all of them have a responsibility to ensure that those who may present themselves to govern are held accountable, to make sure that only the best, those with character, with integrity, are the ones that are voted for. To make sure that when that they too, as citizens, they pay their tax, they obey the law. But before then, the government must also make sure that the taxes they are collecting, there is evidence of what they have used it for. It's not to make them live larger than life lifestyle, to the detriment of the people. That the ordinary citizens cannot send their children to school, they cannot go to hospital, they do not have food on their table, there is no transportation. These are basics, and there is no security. Before you move, and this idea, this lie that anybody is attracting foreign investment. Foreign investment cannot go where you cannot guarantee safety. Foreign investment cannot go where you do not have a consistent policy, When you have a policy flip-flop, today you do this one, tomorrow they are not coming. So these are basics that is supposed to be known by all these people. And they have traveled abroad to see. Why should a government ask the people to tighten their belts? Meanwhile, they are buying SUV vehicles for themselves. They are going abroad for their own treatment, health issues, and then they expect, and they are not improving the health infrastructure. There are no roads, there are no hospitals. Well, then you want the ordinary people to go. In fact, it's beyond their reach now. No common man can go to any hospital. Even buying malaria medicine is beyond them. Or buying rice, let me not say rice, even gari or yam. And they cannot go to farm. So there is food insecurity. These are the issues. The bandits have taken over some of the states, and they are now taxing. They are making people to pay to tax them. They are paying to government at the center, and they are paying to government in the bush. And you think that is a democracy? No government, a place that professes to have a government should not allow that type of, no matter your reason. This idea that it was inherited. You saw it. Yeah, those in power now will come and tell you that they didn't know the problem was like that. But you were not forced. You said you can do something. That was why you were given the mandate. Whatever happened, now Nigeria should probably settle for the next 3 years. And what has happened? There should be no excuse. So that in 2027, there should be questions, just like in other countries. That is where to go. You hold the leaders accountable. They cannot promise heaven and earth and then deliver either darkness, there is no light, or deliver hunger, or deliver poverty. And then you expect, because they have money, they can buy food. So the people should better watch out. What they are giving you every 4 years or every election cycle cannot last you to the... I think everybody has seen it now. If you collected, no matter the amount you collected in 2023, it's not taking you through to 2027. So people they should wise up in the local pylons and make sure that the right people are put in a position of authority and if they don't perform, you hold them out. It doesn't matter where they are. Another thing is this issue of using primordial factors like religion and ethnicity to divide the people, or weaponizing of poverty. But a day will come when now some people are still enjoying it, they are on honeymoon, but time will come when these things will not count, or the party you belong to, or the ethnic group. Because the poor person in Aba is the same thing as the poor person in Borno, in Maiduguri. There is no difference. It is just this ruling class that are living large, that they have made the people to think that they belong there. And then and who tells you where in a society there should be equal opportunity for everybody, for the son of the poor person to aspire to get to the topmost position. So there is nothing that is decreed, nothing that is nobody is born to become a ruler or to remain a ruler when you say you are running. But the other thing that I would like to say is that I have seen the National Assembly carry out what they call a constitutional amendment. And if you go and look at what they are using, sorry, I'm zeroing in on Nigeria, and why not? Charity begins at home. And if you look at what they are using to do this so-called constitutional amendment, it's costing billions every year. But that is not the way to go. The way to go is to dismantle because it's not working. Many people have said so. If Emeka Anyaoku had said so, the owner of, the university, this university proprietor, they have said so. So many people have said so. the 1999 Constitution as amended is not going to produce the kind of equitable society that Nigeria requires. It has to change, but not this piecemeal thing that this National Assembly is doing. They are an interested party. They cannot, for instance, put in something that is against their own interests. So let there be, that would have been the best. This idea we say, if you go and constitute a National Assembly now, or Constituent Assembly that will give us a new constitution, they will say that there's a National Assembly. But remember that in 2014, there was the Constitutional Reform Conference. What has happened? Jonathan did not implement it, and Buhari didn't want to touch it with even the longest spoon. And now nobody is talking about it. There could be the Constituent Assembly that can be set up to now use that as a working tool to be able to, now that everybody is seeing it, that, and so before Kenya, this thing is visited on Nigeria. And for Nigeria, nobody should tell you that Nigeria is too big to fail or too big not to have the kind of things that are happening in Kenya happen in Nigeria. It's a lie. It's only a matter of time. Before we get to that level, let us do the same. My people say, you prepare for the rain when it has not started falling. You make sure so that you see where you are going to hide not when the rain starts, because you'll be badly beaten. And we must know when the rain starts beating us. Let us do that. Nigeria, the foundation is weak. The instrument that controls our coexistence is questionable. We have to dismantle that. Let there be all these ethnic groups, and then the interest groups, lawyers, journalists, teachers, and professors, the Afeniferes, Ohaneze, Arewa, and others, those in the minority countries, let them in the river, what is it called? Riverine South. All of them should come together to now agree dispassionately, see what can work. Some are talking about the regions, maybe 5 or 6, 5 geopolitical zones can be used. This idea of everybody going to Abuja every month to go and get a handout, that it has made many states unsustainable. Many states are not sustainable. So, but when you now have a situation where the way you what resource allocation or whatever or division is equitable, and make the states, make the regions to produce. Now, most of them are not producing anything. They are just waiting at the end of every month to go and share. And you cannot continue to share what that cannot that does not have what you call sustainable consumption. There is no method. You cannot continue to consume. Let Nigeria produce. They did that with the 4 regions. Now you can increase that. They are even talking about increasing, creating more states. I mean, it shows that these people, they can't get it. State creation is not the issue. Let them go to the ground norm, the foundation, the constitution. That the military just let that, so because they were in a hurry to leave, they left it with Nigeria. Of course, it was civilians, lawyers that drafted it, but they did that, under, pressure. Now, it doesn't matter if President Buhari can, bequeath to Nigeria something that of a legacy. He can constitute that. Because before you know it, they are now talking about re-election. And Nigeria will go back. As long as you can't continue to do the same thing and expect different results. So this is where I have to, and thank you for this platform to air my view. And I hope people are listening, because questions will be asked. Posterity will ask questions. Our children will ask us, when these things were happening, what did you do? Over to you, Emmanuel.
Thank you very much, sir, for giving us, making our time to in this program and air your views. There are a lot of questions that I would ask, but we have run out of time. So, but let me give a leeway. So many persons here online. If there is any question to ask, in the absence of any question, I think we're going to cut the curtain here. Mr. Paul Ejime, an international political analyst, it is very fantastic having you in this program to discuss this prominent issue. We are glad, and we expect you to come next time. Anytime we call you, you'll be able to answer us. Thank you very much, sir, for gracing this occasion.
The pleasure is mine. Thank you for the opportunity. God bless.
Have a nice day.
You too.
Okay.